Imagine you're sitting down with other fans talking about the team and the upcoming offseason. Everyone knows big decisions are coming, and there's a mix of excitement and a little nervousness about what might happen next. Free agency is right around the corner, and this is the time when teams start making moves that can change the direction of the entire season. Some familiar faces might stay, others might move on, and new opportunities could appear. Right now, all eyes are on what the organization will decide to do in the next few days. But before I tell you everything, be sure to click the like button if you're a true fan. And write in the comments, "Go Seahawks! Let's go!" NFL free agency is just days away. And right now, there is a growing sense of anticipation surrounding what the Seattle Seahawks could do as the market opens. A lot of fans are watching closely because there are several key names connected to this roster situation. And the big question hovering over everything is simple. Which players will actually return, and which ones are about to walk away as the Seahawks reshape their roster for the upcoming season? When you look at the group of players tied to this moment, 6 names immediately stand out as the most interesting situations for Seattle heading into free agency. Running back Kenneth Walker, Rashid Shahed, safety Kobe Bryant, edge rusher Boy Mafi, cornerback Rick Woolen, and cornerback Josh Jobe. These are players who have been important pieces of the roster, but the reality of the NFL is that when free agency arrives, financial decisions start to drive everything. And that is where things become complicated for the Seahawks. The truth is that bringing back every key contributor simply isn't realistic. Seattle has always operated with discipline when it comes to the salary cap, and General Manager John Schneider has built a reputation around sticking to a very clear financial structure. He doesn't typically chase deals that go beyond the number he believes is right for the franchise. That philosophy has shaped this roster for years, and it's likely to shape this free agency period as well. When looking at this specific group of free agents, there's a real possibility that the Seahawks might only bring back 1 or 2 of them. Among those names, Josh Jobe appears to be the player Seattle may have the best chance of re-signing. With the others, the challenge comes down to market value. Several of them are expected to command contracts that could go well beyond what Seattle feels comfortable paying. And that's where John Schneider's long-standing strategy becomes important. Instead of overspending in free agency, Schneider has often trusted the NFL draft to replenish the roster with young talent. Over the years, he has consistently shown the ability to identify players who can develop into major contributors once they arrive in Seattle. Because of that track record, there is a real sense that the front office may once again rely on the draft to fill some of these potential holes. At the same time, the Seahawks are not sitting still. Behind the scenes, there are clear signs that the organization is carefully evaluating opportunities across the league. Schneider is known for being patient, waiting for the right moment before making a move. Some around the team believe he currently has multiple plans in place for how to approach this offseason, depending on how the market unfolds. One area where Seattle could look to make a significant upgrade is the pass rush. There has already been speculation about the possibility of the Seahawks targeting a high-impact edge rusher if the right opportunity presents itself. One name that has generated discussion is Trey Hendrickson. If Seattle were able to land a player like that, it would immediately strengthen the defensive front and give the defense a serious boost heading into the season. However, there is competition around the league, including reported interest from the Dallas Cowboys, which means any potential deal would likely involve a substantial contract. Another possibility that has been discussed involves Jonathan Grenard. According to reports referenced during the conversation surrounding the team's plans, Seattle has shown interest in the idea of acquiring him through a trade with the Minnesota Vikings. But a move like that would likely require giving up valuable draft capital, possibly including a second-round pick along with another later selection. For a front office that values its draft resources as much as Seattle does, That kind of price could make the decision much more complicated. While free agency headlines tend to focus on the biggest names, there are also smaller roster decisions that could have an impact. For example, the Seahawks recently brought back players like Drake Thomas, Ty Okada, and George Holani on new deals. These might not generate major national attention, but internally, those moves are seen as quietly important depth additions as the team prepares for the upcoming season. Another interesting situation involves wide receiver Jake Bobo. Seattle chose not to tender him at a $3 million level, which means there is a possibility he could leave if another team offers a bigger deal. However, the expectation appears to be that the Seahawks are hoping to bring him back on a more team-friendly contract. It's a calculated risk, and one that reflects the organization's broader approach to managing the roster and the salary cap. The draft could also play a major role in how the Seahawks approach their secondary. This year's class reportedly includes several intriguing defensive back prospects who could fit into the system Seattle is building. One of the names mentioned as a potential fit is Clemson cornerback Avion Terrell, a player described as a lockdown defender with strong ball-hawking ability. Adding someone like that could significantly elevate the playmaking ability of the secondary. Another defensive back prospect that has generated attention is Brandon Cece out of South Carolina. His versatility makes him particularly interesting in a defensive scheme that has been evolving to adapt to the strengths of different players on the roster. The idea of adding a defensive back who can play multiple roles could be extremely appealing for a coaching staff that values flexibility. All of these possibilities highlight just how complex the Seahawks' off-season strategy could become. Free agency, potential trades, and the draft are all interconnected pieces of a larger puzzle. The front office has to balance financial discipline with the need to remain competitive in a division that continues to feature strong teams like the San Francisco 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams. Right now, it feels like Seattle is waiting for the right moment to act. John Schneider has built his reputation on patience and calculated moves, and many around the team believe he's preparing to strike when the opportunity is exactly right. The Seahawks may not make the earliest splash in free agency, but that doesn't mean they won't make a meaningful move when the time comes. And that brings us to the question every Seahawks fan is asking right now. When the free agency window officially opens and the market starts moving fast, will Seattle stay conservative and trust the draft again? Or will John Schneider finally pull the trigger on a major move that reshapes the roster for the upcoming season? What do you think the Seahawks should do in this situation? At the same time, the situation around Rashid Shaheed is another storyline that Seahawks fans are watching very closely. The reality is that his market value appears to be rising as free agency approaches. Reports indicate that he may be looking for a contract in the range of around $18 million per year, and that number alone changes the entire conversation for Seattle. The Seahawks have to ask themselves a very serious question. Does Shaheed's production justify that kind of investment within the structure of this roster? From Seattle's perspective, the hesitation makes sense. While Shaheed has shown flashes of the explosive playmaking ability that made him valuable earlier in his career, his most recent season with the Seahawks did not necessarily produce the type of numbers that make a front office comfortable committing to a massive deal. Paying a player close to $18 million annually requires confidence that he will be a consistent difference-maker, and right now, the organization appears unsure whether that level of commitment would be the right move. That doesn't mean the door is completely closed. Situations like this often change quickly once the market begins to move. If teams across the league start prioritizing other wide receivers, or if Shaheed's asking price comes down slightly, the Seahawks could still find themselves back in the conversation. But as things stand right now, The expectation is that Seattle may be prepared to move forward without him if the price goes beyond what the front office believes is reasonable. Another layer to this entire situation is the evolving offensive environment in Seattle. With Sam Darnold expected to continue working within the offense and Brian Fleury stepping in as the new offensive coordinator, the Seahawks are entering a period of transition on that side of the ball. Off-season chemistry, new play designs, and adjustments to the offensive identity could all influence how the team values certain skill players moving forward. Sometimes a new coordinator changes how the roster is built, and that could be another factor in the decisions being made right now. Meanwhile, the defensive side of the ball remains a major focus for potential upgrades. Improving the edge rush has been mentioned repeatedly as a priority, and it's easy to understand why. In today's NFL, elite pass rushers can completely change the way a defense operates. They force quarterbacks into mistakes, create turnovers, and make life significantly easier for the secondary. If Seattle is able to add another dominant presence off the edge, it could elevate the entire defense. That's why names like Trey Hendrickson continue to circulate in discussions around the Seahawks. A player with his level of production immediately commands attention across the league. If Seattle were somehow able to land him, it would instantly signal that the organization is serious about pushing toward championship contention again. But the competition for a player like that will be intense, and the financial commitment would likely be substantial. Then there's the trade scenario involving Jonathan Grenard, which presents a completely different type of decision. Trading for him would not only involve taking on his contract, but also sacrificing valuable draft picks. Seattle doesn't currently have an excess of draft capital, which makes every selection extremely important. The Seahawks have built a reputation for finding impact players through the draft, and giving up those opportunities is never something the front office does lightly. This brings us back to one of the most consistent themes of John Schneider's tenure as general manager: patience. Time and time again, he has shown that he is willing to wait while other teams rush into big moves. Instead of reacting emotionally to the early chaos of free agency, Schneider often waits until the market settles before making his most strategic decisions. That patience has allowed Seattle to find value in unexpected places. And when you combine that philosophy with the team's confidence in the scouting department, the draft becomes even more important. If Seattle does lose some of these key free agents, the plan could very well be to replace them with young players who can grow into major roles. Prospects like Avion Terrell or Brandon Cece represent the type of versatile defensive talent that could fit perfectly into what the Seahawks are building. The NFC West is not getting any easier either. The San Francisco 49ers remain one of the most complete teams in the league, and the Los Angeles Rams continue to stay competitive as long as they have Matthew Stafford leading the offense. For the Seahawks to keep pace in this division, every off-season decision matters. Free agency, trades, and the draft all need to come together in a way that strengthens the roster without compromising the long-term vision. Right now, the Seahawks appear to be standing at the edge of a very important moment. The next few days could determine how this roster looks heading into the upcoming season. Fans may feel nervous watching some familiar names potentially leave, but the organization clearly believes in the plan that is being built behind the scenes. If that plan works, Seattle could come out of this offseason with a stronger defense, a more balanced roster, and a foundation built around younger talent ready to step into bigger roles. But until the moves actually happen, everything remains a possibility. And that's why this upcoming week could end up being one of the most important stretches of the entire offseason for the Seahawks. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to stay updated with every major Seahawks move as it happens, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, and check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now. The latest Seahawks news and analysis will always be right here, so don't miss it.